Good morning, one and all. I'm Dr. Veena. Here, we are going to discuss about intellectual property rights today. So, we are in knowledge-driven society, and at the same time, knowledge-driven economy, where knowledge creation is most important. So, as we discuss with respect to intellectual property rights, how important knowledge is, and if you look at from previous ancient India to now, there is a shift in the approach from tangible to intangible assets. So, when we are talking about tangible to intangible assets, here economy, how it has been transformed from knowledge driven in the present society where it was being given tangible properties, assets were considered as valuable. But now in the economy of information services, it's most important that intangible assets have gained a lot of significance. So where there the importance of IPR has come into existence, and it is considered as marketable financial assets. So when we look at the marketable financial assets of intellectual property rights, which are the creation of mind and of an intellect, so that has been raised a greater importance in the world economy. So if you look at India's position, the India ranked 40th position out of 50 at global level in International Intellectual Property, that is IP Index of 2021, which is released by US Chamber of Commerce, and that was a slip when you compare with the rank of 36 in the year 2019, which have been the major importance of it is where it has been taken with respect to the COVID pandemic. It has been affected to increase that the rank of it. So from 36 to 40th in 2021. When we are talking about the intellectual property rights, so as we have already dealt with looking at the creation of mind, it's purely when we look at it generates from the ideas of individuals. But whether the ideas are protected as an intellectual work is a great question, because as individuals have n number of ideas, as they have the creativity which is gifted by God. But at the same time, when we look at the concept of the property, which is ideas are not considered as the intellectual property. Why? Because each individual has n number of ideas. So those ideas which have been culminated into the tangible form, in that way, when it protects the requirements of intellectual property right, then only that has been protected as the IP right of the individuals. And in today's world, when we look at it, we come across most of the products in everyday life which have been the result of creation of mind. So when we look at the creation of mind, which is required for the essential requirements to be fulfilled for the living or for the development of a nation, let us take an example where we are talking about the household, even the articles. So here we just look at the pressure cooker, the example which have been displayed. So how this can be looked at as an various types of intellectual property rights. So the technological invention which have come across with respect to the innovation in terms of the speed of cooking or protecting the various nutrients along with that, with respect to that invention under the intellectual property, it can be considered as a patent. But for the same thing, how this product has been designed as an outer look and shape of that particular configuration can be protected as a different type of intellectual property, which is considered as a design. And how this has been sold in the market on the brand names or the logos to distinguish from one manufacturer to another, to protect its quality, and at the same time to look at how the product has been having the competitive with respect to other products in the market. For that is the person who has been innovative, and he has been clearly created a brand name or a logo which can be protected as another type of intellectual right as a trademarks under different categories of an intellectual property right. But when it comes to copyright of the same, the cooker example, if you look at here, it has been instructions, the manual or the booklet which have been provided in the form of for the convenience of the people to make best use of that product. which have been in a written expression provided to understand as an instruction manual that can be protected as a copyright. So day-to-day life, when you look at it, intellectual property rights has a greater significance in everyone's life. So before going into legal aspects of that intellectual property rights, how the concept of this intellectual property right has been come into existence. So if we look at the classification, the property, so which we know as in the physical property in the ancient India and all, now the modern India, if you compare with it, the property have been clearly classified into two broad categories, that is the tangible and the intangible. Again, the tangible property which is further classified into movable and immovable, whereas intangible property is classified under intellectual property and the goodwill. So when we are talking about this tangible, which is of movable and immovable, the best examples we know, the cars are the best, the cell phones and all the products which we have been using, having the characteristics of the transferability from mere delivery of the possession, can be considered as movable. Whereas immovable, if you look at it, the land, which has been an immovable in character, so that was having a greater financial asset in before the modernized world. So the financial assets which have been in tangible form has completely taken a shift in the modern India when we look at it with respect to intangible property in the form of intellectual property, which is either it can be only, cannot be felt, cannot be seen or touched, but it can be only felt when we look at with respect to intellectual property. But that has a greater the significance in the present, the economic aspect of it, where when you compare with, because with respect to the physical properties, that can be having a diminishing value of it. But when you look at the intellectual property, which is a creation of a mind, where there will be a growth and development, so that has got a greater significance in the modern economy in the world. So that is the greater significance when we look at with respect to intellectual property right. So normally, to have a better understanding of intellectual property rights, as we have stated, it is a creation of a mind, and the meaning is where it is an intangible form and it has been having a greater financial asset in the world economy. So these things are broadly classified into 7 in accordance with international agreement, that is of TRIPS agreement, which we deal to harmonize the legislations across the globe to seek the commercialization of the rightful owner. The intellectual property rights have been clearly classified under 7 categories, that is patent, the trademark, industrial design, copyright, trade secrets, layout designs and geographical indications. So these things has got a wider protection across the globe, and to have the harmonization and have everyone access to it, some minimum standards has to be followed to seek the protection. So let us just go in detail to explain that each one of it when we look at these things. So to name, it's a patent. That the patent, when we are talking about, the patent is an invention or for innovation, a right has been protected with respect to that creation of mind, which is a result of creation of mind. The next, when we look at intellectual property right, which has been classified in terms of the trademark, that has been given to the manufacturer and the people who have been selling in terms of the trade with the brand name or the logo. So for that, it has been clearly distinguished from one manufacturer to another, where that manufacturer will be known for the product, the brand as well as the quality of it, which will be eventually gaining a goodwill in the market. Another intellectual property which have been classified as industrial design, where we look at with respect to the product and outer shape of it. In such cases, the design which captures to the eye of an individual, that also has a greater impact in the minds of the consumers to buy the product. So under such circumstances, the industrial design has gained a lot of significance in choosing the products when there is lot of competitive products available in the market. The next, geographical indication, which is the mainly with respect to, if you look at it, the geographical area where it has been based on appellation of origin or indication of source. It gives a lot of significance with respect to as a community property. For example, Tirupati Laddu, Kolhapuri Chappal, or many things when you look at it with respect to that geographical indication, it can be protected as a community property, which is completely different from individual properties as they discussed in other types of intellectual property rights. So, when you look at the layout designs, it is related to the semiconductors and integrated chips, which is in the event of the electronic and communication, the digital India, where it has been sought with respect to protection. So, with another aspect of intellectual property right, or the classification which we are looking at, is of trade secrets, which are considered as undisclosed information. As long as they keep it as a secret, it will be considered intangible property as an intellectual property right. So, here it is being protected in the common law, but whereas if you look at in US, the scenario is we do have a trademark protection law as codified, but when it comes to a copyright, which is considered as a bundle of rights with respect to the literary work, music, the various aspects of it, where we are going to deal in detail. Now, all these intellectual properties, when we look at it, what are the various rights which they have been guaranteed under the various legislations and the international treaties? If you look at it, everyone who have been creative and everyone who is fulfilling the minimum standards as stated in various conventions and agreed, and the TRIPS is considered as the major one, the rights following are being provided to the individuals. The first, exclusive monopoly rights. So, when we are talking about exclusive monopoly rights, these rights are given to the creator, whether it is a patent, the trademarks or copyright, etc. He is the exclusive owner for a limited period of time as per the statute. And for what is this right given for? The next point will be for creation of minds. That means whatever the ideas he has in his mind, which he has created, that outcome of that particular idea, for that idea this right has been recognized, and this creation is considered as another point, that is intangible potential asset. So, here whatever it has been in the minds of the people, that is created and which is created, and as it is been qualified to be protected as intellectual property right. So, that is considered as a very potential asset, as a financial asset, which is intangible, because it cannot be seen or only it can be felt, as it is intangible in nature. And why it has been stated as a negative right? The negative right, when we considered, is it excludes all others except the owner of that intellectual property rights. So, these are some of the exclusive things which an intellectual property holder will have when it compared with the other people in the world. Now, as we stated, this has not been confined to the only one particular area of it as human mind and human existence across the world, and it is not just limited to any of the countries. So, we do have here international conventions for intellectual property. To go with the first convention, as the oldest convention is considered as Paris Convention, which has come into existence of 1883 for protection of industrial property. So, that has been further amended in various years, and the latest amendment, if you look at it, is of 1989. And in this Paris Convention, it has been classified as industrial property. So, they have been clearly explained what an industrial property is. The industrial property which has been emerging out of any of the manufacturing events, manufacturing aspects, that is like patents, the trademarks and the designs, because the products which they have been manufacturing for selling into the market as per their trade. So, under such circumstances, this never covered the copyright. Then next comes the Berne Convention. This Berne Convention was in 1886 the first time, where it has been recognized for the protection of a literary and artistic works which is considered as a copyright. So, that is further amended in various years, and we see that 1971 and 1990 has been amended. Now, here when we have a different the rights, industrial property and the copyright under different conventions at international level, to have and to clearly have the harmonization of these laws after establishment of the World Trade Organization, and these are also considered as the tradable goods. The intellectual property rights, a separate agreement in terms of the TRIPS. What we are looking at is trade related aspects of intellectual property. That agreement has been agreed under the WTO. This is one of the significant agreements where it is clearly exclusively related to intellectual property protection. This treaty has elaborately given what are the various types of intellectual property rights with respect to the what are the general principles, national treatment and most favored nation concept, and public health was considered as the most important even while protecting the various types of intellectual property rights. Next, after the information and communication technology or the digital era when we have entered, there separately with respect to the literary work, because as we have we found the various the content on the online, that is in digital mode. So, it felt necessary to have another agreement exclusively dealing with the digital content. So, that is Wipo Copyright Treaty, that is WCT, which has come into existence after the digital era has been taken in the knowledge economy. And the next, when we look at it, to have the as convenience as we have seen international conventions, to have at a various level and to simplify the procedure with respect to patents, the PCT has come into existence, that is Patent Cooperation Treaty, which gives the facilitates to the countries to file as a single application, so that they can seek in various territorial limits the protection of the patents. Now, as we have seen clearly, the total which we have been seen from moving to the tangible to intangible the assets, which have been gained a lot of momentum when we look at it out of creativity and innovation. As we have clearly seen, it is knowledge driven economy and we are into the knowledge era society. Thank you all.